But yeah, I'm ready.
Good, because we're already live. Chardonnay True Crime fans, welcome back to another episode of Chardonnay True Crime. I'm your host, Dakota. That alcoholic over there is the lovely Kate.
That's me.
That is her. And tonight we are going to be discussing Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber.
Woo!
Kate was actually really excited about doing this episode, weren't you, Kate?
Yeah, this is one that, like, I've even brought up, like, have we covered him yet? Have we talked about him yet? We still got to cover him.
Yeah. No, this is one that she's been excited to cover. I'm excited to cover it as well. We've got a lot to make fun of in this episode.
If there is one thing we like doing, it is making fun of these assholes.
Yeah, and it's funny, before the episode started, I was like looking up pictures of the Unabomber. I'm going to share one right now because I feel like it is important. This is a picture from when, oops, that's the wrong button. This is a picture from when he was younger. This one right here. Share. Boom. All right, so this is a picture of him when he was young. And I'm going to say it, like, if anybody was going to play the Unabomber in a movie, I would say Michael Shannon.
Yeah, I see that.
Because that's one person that he could play. That's one person that he could play that he actually looks like. Just saying. People who directed Iceman.
Oh.
I will never not be angry about that.
We finally watched Knives Out together the other night. I've been trying to get her to watch that for a while, and I kept making her angry by making Iceman references with Michael Shannon's character.
I was so mad.
The first, oh god, it was so perfect. The first one, she was just like, I will murder you.
I still will.
She was so angry.
I don't care what anybody says. That man is not Kaczynski. No, I will. It will not stand.
I don't know how to tell you this.
James Gandolfini looks just like Richard Kaczynski. I have the pictures, Kate. You see it.
I have seen it. I agree. You are correct. But I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know how to tell you this.
What?
It happened.
I don't acknowledge that.
Oh god, you're like Adam from Ghostbusters, from Mythbusters. Just, I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Indeed. Also, I love him, so thank you.
I love him too.
Yeah, every now and then you remember that the Mythbusters weren't actually friends, and like you just get sad about it.
Or you remind me, and then I get sad about it.
Yeah, but like admit, like there's been times where we've been talking, and all of a sudden you'll just be like, "Oh, the Mythbusters weren't actually friends," and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
It's like they had like that like headbutting banter that you would expect from like people who were like actually friends, but like act like they hate each other, you know, like we do sometimes. And
yeah, I was gonna say like us.
Yeah, exactly. But no, they very genuinely like did not like each other, and it makes me sad.
It's unfortunate, it is. But unlike them, we are best friends, and we have the Unabomber to discuss this evening. So why don't we get into that?
Woohoo!
So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Unabomber, his name was Dr. Theodore John Ted Kaczynski. He was born May 22nd, 1942, and was, you know, as I said, also known as the Unabomber, which stands for the University and Airline Bomber. He is an American mathematician and a social critic who engaged in a male bombing spree that spanned nearly 20 years, killing 3 people and injuring 23. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, where he was an intellectual child prodigy. He excelled academically from an early age and was accepted into Harvard University at age 16. God. So he earned his undergraduate degree and later earned a PhD in mathematics from the University of Michigan and became an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley at age 25, but resigned 2 years later. In 1971, he moved to a remote cabin without electricity or running water in Lincoln, Montana, where he lived as a recluse while learning survival skills in an attempt to become self-sufficient. He decided to start a bombing campaign after watching the wilderness around his home being destroyed by development. From 1978 to 1995, Kaczynski sent 16 bombs to targets, including universities and airlines, as I said, killing 3 people and injuring 23. He later sent a letter to the New York Times on April 24th, 1995, and promised to desist from terrorism if the Times or the Washington Post published his manifesto. In his Industrial Society and Its Failure, also called the Unabomber Manifesto, he argued that his bombings were extreme but necessary to attract attention to the erosion of human freedom necessitated by modern technologies requiring large-scale organization. The Unabomber was one of the targets of the FBI's investigation's most costly investigations. And before Kaczynski's identity was known, the FBI used the handle Unabomb, University and Airline Bomber, to refer to his case, which resulted in the media calling him the Unabomber. Despite the FBI's efforts, he was not caught as a result of this investigation, but instead, because his brother recognized his style of writing and beliefs from the manifesto and tipped off the FBI, which we'll talk about in part 2.
Damn.
Kaczynski's lawyers were court appointed, but he eventually dismissed them because they wanted to plead insanity in order to avoid the death penalty, and Kaczynski did not believe that he was insane. Once it was sure that he would be defending himself on national television, the court entered a plea agreement under which he pled guilty and was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. And Theodore Kaczynski has been designated a domestic terrorist by the FBI. Some anarchist authors, such as John Zerzan and John Moore, have come to his defense while holding some reservations about his actions and ideas. And that's sort of the elevator pitch of the Unabomber and his whole activities. But we are going to get in a little bit deeper when it comes to good old Ted Kaczynski.
I didn't know that, like, that's where the name came from. I didn't know it was University.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I thought that it was, I always forget that it's spelled with an A, so I always assume it's Unabomber. So, like, they
when I was
like,
when I was posting the description for tonight's episode, I had to like go back and Google it again because I was like, I'm pretty sure it's with an A, but instinctively I always write it with an I. So I was like, I better triple check.
Yeah. Why is he dressed like the Unabomber?
Well, I mean, there's actually a good reason for that belief. Hang on, that's the Unabomber. So there's a sketch of the Unabomber that went out, and that's where the most people know is the sketch. Like they've seen the sketch. So I'm gonna show that really quick, just so you understand the reference that Kate just made. So this is a sketch of the Unabomber.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Do you understand the reference now, Kate?
Yeah. I mean, like, I knew that that's like what it was in reference to, but I just never actually seen it.
So people who are listening and not watching, the Unabomber, you can look up that sketch very easily. It's Unabomber sketch. And it's a man with curly hair, a mustache, large sunglasses, and a hoodie pulled up around. So yeah, that's the quintessential Unabomber sketch right there. But let's get started with the early life of Ted Kaczynski. Theodore John Kaczynski was born, as I said, May 22nd, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois, to working class second generation Poland Americans Wanda Teresa and Theodore Richard Kaczynski, who was a sausage maker. So many jokes. So many jokes.
Let's leave the parents out of this unless they become important later, because right now I don't know.
Actually, they're not that bad. They're not bad people. They aren't.
Okay, then let's leave the parents out of this.
So his parents told his younger brother David Kaczynski that Ted had been a very happy baby until he had contracted severe hives as a small child, which forced him into hospital isolation with limited contact with others, after which he showed little emotion for months. Now, this actually isn't that uncommon. So when it comes to babies, like this early point in their life is extremely integral in forming bonds with humans and healthy bonds with humans. Ted, unfortunately, was stuck in this hospital in isolation for months, and he wasn't able to like form any of those connections. And like as a baby, that's like really important. There's been studies about this, and they've done a lot of studies about like, you know, the how important it is to like form these connections for, you know, babies and stuff, and even just nonverbal connection, just being there for a baby. And so babies can have like, you know, tummy time, and they can like, you know, be around their parents and just have like someone that's just sitting there going, oh, what a good baby. Like
just
that's
some
so
sort of
important
like
for babies.
some sort of like familiar human presence.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and being held is like so important for babies. Like that's so important. And being comforted and stuff like that. So like for them, I mean, you know, it's the 40s, early 50s. They don't really know all of that at the time. So I don't imagine those nurses were like, you know, bouncing him around on their hips. They're probably like, ew, gross, that baby has hives. Don't touch it.
Yeah, which is really sad because like, you know, hives are uncomfortable. They are so uncomfortable. And when you're a baby, you know, you don't have any like understanding of what's going on with your body. You just know I'm uncomfortable and this is a problem. And
yeah,
all you know how to do is cry about it.
yep.
And, you know, if there's nobody who's like
Imagine like how bad the hives would have had to have been for him to like be in the hospital for so long, you know?
Yeah. Like
ugh.
Ugh. Like
so here's an
I get hives like all the time. I get hives all the time, but like they come and go. Mm-hmm. And so like I can't even imagine like what would cause him to be like in basically like a constant state of breaking out in hives.
Mm-hmm. So after he left the hospital, he actually had like a lot of behavioral issues. And it wasn't so much that he was like a bad child. It was that he had a severe phobia of like people. And then weirdly enough, like strangers, which is understandable. I mean, as a baby, he's traumatized because all he has is like strangers around him. But then it's a really weird one. He had an extreme phobia of buildings.
Huh.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be that like, you know, that was just imprinted on his little baby brain. Like, oh, I'm going into a new building. Oh God, all this terrible stuff happened. And I was without my mommy for like months. You know?
Yeah, that's just so vague.
Yeah.
It's like it's
babies don't have reasoning.
That's true. But like I mean, like I feel like that's just such a general phobia, like of buildings. Like how do how do you go through, I don't even know how you go through life like that, because, you know,
No idea.
buildings are literally everywhere. Like,
Well, yeah, Ted kind of tried to work on that in his own weird way, but we'll get into that later. Um, it was said that for a while, he would just go into, like, if he got too overwhelmed or overstimulated or anything, he would go into what his mother called his shutdown place, where he would just sit in a corner and just shut down.
damn.
Just stare into the corner completely wordlessly, just didn't move at all, just shut down.
That's both impressive and terrifying.
Yeah. As like a little kid, that's fucking horrifying. Like, children are so scary.
Children
They
are
really
really
are.
fucking scary.
Children are really scary. Like, people don't, I don't know, people just don't really seem to understand, like, that children are actually terrifying. But
Yeah.
Wanda recalled Ted recoiling from a picture of himself as an infant being held down by physicians examining his hives. And she said that he showed sympathy to animals who were in cages or otherwise helpless, which she speculated stemmed from his experience in hospital isolation. Or, you know, you could just be like an empathetic kid, you know, just like, oh, I don't like seeing animals being fucking helpless or like in cages. Like, I don't like that. And I'm a
Yeah.
grown ass adult.
Yeah. I mean, I had one entire experience where I was held down by doctors when I was like 3, but it's, you know, I
Oh,
still
I had a
don't
lot
like,
of experience.
I don't like seeing animals in cages either, unless I know like
No.
unless I know like it's for their own safety or they're like actually being cared for properly, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I actually I empathize with Ted on this because as a child I had high levels of lead in my blood. Just from yeah, when I was a kid, when I lived in New Orleans, my mom and her boyfriend at the time were rebuilding a house, and the house was old, so it had been painted with lead paint. So they took this house down to the studs, and there was basically paint chips on everything. And as a kid, I sucked my thumb. So they would take me to the construction site. I'd run around touching everything, and you know, little kids don't wash their hands, so I'd stick my thumb in my mouth and I got high levels of lead in my blood. And so they would have to do blood draws and stuff to like check my lead levels, everything. And yeah, I got pretty traumatized about doctors for a really long time. And to this day, I actually, if I have to have blood drawn, I can't, number one, I can't look at it. But number two, I actually have to request that they use a butterfly needle on me because it's smaller than like a regular needle.
Mm.
So the butterfly needle is only about that big, and that's what they generally use for children. But I'm still just like, yeah, I know you need to draw blood, and I know that I'm like a grown ass adult and everything, but I would prefer if you used a butterfly needle, and they'll do it most of the time.
Well,
The
that's good at
only time
least.
they Yeah, the only time that they didn't do it was when I was in the hospital when I was being checked into a mental hospital,
Mm.
and the phlebotomist was like terrible and kept missing my vein, and I was like in the middle of like a manic episode, and I like finally screamed at her, and then she got all mad at me and was just like, well, maybe if you weren't moving around so much. And I was just like, I'm literally ripping my hair out. Like, what do you want from me right now, lady? Like, I have ripped out like fistfuls of hair. Like, I can't exactly sit still right now, madam.
Just fuck you. Have you considered
Maybe a
that?
little bit. Maybe a little bit. I complained about her like so hard after I was better, and like the hospital was like actually had to like apologize about it. It
Good.
was kind of funny. She was so unprofessional. And here's a really funny story. The hospital that I went to when I was suicidal was the hospital that I was actually born in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you've told me
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So like when I was there, I was like, yeah, this is my name, social security number, birthday. And they were like, oh, are you still at this address? And I was just like, What? It was the address from when I was fucking born.
Just, excuse me?
Yeah, they're like, have you been here before? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then they were like, oh, the last time you were here was January, blah, 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 in this year. And I was just like, when I was born?
Just weird. I don't really recall.
It was only 20 years ago.
I was only alive for like 10 minutes. I don't remember that very well.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. I was like in the last year that hospital did births.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't do births at that hospital anymore. They send you over to the Catholic hospital now, which is kind of funny. But yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so from first grade to fourth grade, Ted Kaczynski attended Sherman Elementary School in Chicago, where administrators described him as healthy and well-adjusted. And in 1952, 10 years after he was born, the family moved to southwest suburban Evergreen Park, Illinois, and Ted transferred to Evergreen Park Central Junior High School. After testing scored his IQ at 167, he skipped the 6th grade, and Ted later described this as a pivotal event. Previously, he had socialized with his peers and was even a leader, but after skipping ahead, he felt he did not fit in with the other children and was bullied. That's totally understandable that he would feel that way because, like, imagine you're like, in school and this little kid comes into your class and you're just like, what the fuck? There's a little kid in here.
Behold, a baby.
Yeah, right? So he actually, just so you know, his IQ is higher than Ed Kemper's.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Look at him.
He's got an IQ of 167. Ed Kemper has an IQ of 145.
Okay, yes, but how tall is he?
That's a good question. Let's find out how tall Ted Kaczynski is.
His IQ is higher to overcompensate for him not being as tall.
He's 5'9".
He's almost a foot shorter than him.
Yeah, because Kemper's like 6'7", right?
I think so, yeah.
No, Ed Kemper's. So he is a foot taller than him.
Oh my god.
Ed Kemper calls him teeny tiny Ted Kaczynski.
Teeny tiny Teddy.
Teeny tiny Teddy. Both of us, but we're still gonna call him teeny tiny Teddy.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I mean, I imagine that's what the kids at school called him too, since he was so much younger than everyone.
That's true.
Teeny tiny
and then
Teddy.
Ed Kemper started calling him that when they were adults, so you can imagine how much madder that made him.
Oh god. He's just like, how the fuck do you know about teeny tiny Teddy?
Ed Kemper. Well, you are teeny tiny Teddy.
How dare you?
Ted Kaczynski just, excuse you!
Listen up, you son of a bitch! Kemper just what? I'm just imagining, I'm imagining, how I'm imagining it? I'm imagining like, you remember in The Princess Bride? when Wesley's like trying to attack, oh god, what's his name?
Fezzik!
Andre the Giant. Yeah, Fezzik. He's like attacking him and he's just standing there like.
See, you know what I immediately just thought of?
What?
That bit in Blazing Saddles with you brute, you brute, you brute, you vicious brute!
I'm just imagining like, oh god, just him as Wesley, just like attacking Fezzik, and Fezzik's just like, whoa. Yeah. Okay.
I just want you to think you're doing well. I hate for people to die embarrassed.
Oh god, I love him.
I love him so much.
R.I.P. Andre the Giant.
Uh, I'm just gonna think of Ed Kemper as Fezzik now.
Oh God, right?
Oh
I have to see how tall Andre the Giant was.
no. Oh man.
He was 7'4". Okay. So Ed's only 5 inches shorter than Andre the Giant.
So tall.
I have a friend that height, actually. George.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you remember. I told you about my friend George.
I can't remember if I've met him. I almost feel like I have, but I may have just heard so much about him that I just feel like I've met him.
I don't think you have met George. It's George the Giant.
Yeah.
I don't think you have.
I'm genuinely unsure now.
I honestly, I don't think that you have met George. But I don't know.
I don't know.
So anyways, neighbors in the Evergreen Park later described Kaczynski's family as civic-minded folks, with one stating that the parents sacrificed everything they had for their children. Both Ted and David were intelligent, but Ted stood out in particular. One neighbor said that she had never known anyone who had a brain like he did, while another said that Ted was strictly a loner who didn't play, an old man before his time. So basically, Ted Kaczynski at that young age was young Sheldon.
Oh.
I'm just saying. He's basically like the real life young Sheldon.
Yeah, it does kind of sound like that. I just think it's also like the wording of that, like never known anyone with a brain like who had a brain like he had. Like, did he have one like Abby Normal?
Yeah, he had an Abby normal brain sitting on his bedside table growing up.
Abby something.
Abby what?
Abby Normal.
Abby normal.
I'm almost certain that's the name.
See, now I'm just imagining Ed Kemper as the monster. That's so mean. I really hope that these guys can never find this fucking show.
It's just the images that are coming up in our heads. We're not actually like comparing them to these characters, sort of. Right?
I just really hope that these guys are never able to find this show. Because these guys are both still alive, for the record.
Oh, they both are? I knew Kemper was. I wasn't sure about Ted.
Yeah. Kaczynski's still alive. So his mother recalled Ted as a shy child who had become unresponsive if pressured into a social situation. And at one point, she was so worried about Ted's social development that she considered entering him into a study for autistic children led by Bruno Bettelhelm. She decided against it after observing Bettelhelm's abrupt and cold manner, however.
Wow.
Kaczynski, yeah, I know, right?
Like, that's pretty big for parents of this era. Like, not only the fact that like she considered
it really is.
Not only the fact that like she considered it, but like the fact that like she decided against it because like the guy who was conducting it seemed like a dick. Just like, maybe that's not best for my child.
Yeah, she's, for all I can tell, the Kaczynski parents are actually like fantastic fucking parents to their kids.
That is a really nice change of pace.
It really is. It is actually a very nice change of pace, considering, it's miles above like someone like, oh God, just off the top of my head, Henry Lee Lucas's mother. who hit her son with a 2x4 and left him unconscious for 2 days until her pimp was like, we need to bring this kid to the fucking hospital. He's been unconscious for 2 days.
Ugh. Yeah. Good times.
Her pimp had to be the one to say that. Like, fuck.
Mother of the year.
And she let him live with his drippy eye.
Oh, I forgot about the drippy eye.
Did you ever tell your brother about old drippy eye?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely told him about old drippy eye. He hated it. He was very mad at me. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Whew. You just glitched out a little bit there. Hopefully that everyone else was able to catch that.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay now. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, Kaczynski attended Evergreen Park Community High School, where he excelled academically, and he played the trombone in the marching band and was a member of the mathematics, biology, coin, and German clubs, but was regarded as an outsider by his classmates. In 1996, a former classmate said he was never really seen as a person, as an individual personality. He was always regarded as a walking brain, so to speak. God, that's just sad. And during this period, Ted became intensely interested in mathematics, spending hours studying and solving advanced problems. So he's basically like if Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory was merged with Matt Damon's character in Good Will Hunting, kind of.
A little bit, yeah. I see that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, he became associated with a group of like-minded boys interested in science and mathematics known as the Briefcase Boys for their penetrant. God damn it. I wrote this word. I just can't talk when I'm drunk. Known for the fact that they carried briefcases. One member of this group recalled Kaczynski as the smartest kid in class, just quiet and shy until you got to know him. And once you knew him, he could talk and talk. So there's that.
That's relatable.
Throughout high school, he was ahead of his classmates academically and placed in a more advanced mathematics class and soon mastered the material. He skipped the 11th grade, and by attending summer school, he was able to graduate at age 15. And he was one of his school's 5 national merit finalists, which was encouraged to apply to Harvard College. And he did actually go to Harvard. Like I said before, he entered Harvard on a scholarship in 1958 at the age of 16. And a classmate he was emotionally unprepared. They packed him up and sent him to Harvard before he was ready. He didn't even have a driver's license.
Do you emotionally need that to go to Harvard?
I mean, no, but like he was so young. Like, God, it's just another case of him being thrown in to a place that he's totally unprepared for, you know? Mm-hmm. Now, during his first year at Harvard, Kaczynski lived at 8 Prescott Street, which was designed to accommodate the youngest, most precocious freshmen in a small, intimate living space. For the next 3 years, he lived at the Elliott House, and one of his suitemates there recalled that he avoided contact with others and would just rush through the suite, go to his room, and slam the door. It was also stated that... Yeah, I know, right? Same. But it was also stated that he actually had like a horrible room at Harvard. Like his room was one of the worst that they had ever seen. He just didn't clean up after himself. And like the smell around his room, just like by walking by his door, it just smelled horrible. Like spoiled milk.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah. Actually, that's something that they say about Ted quite a bit, is that he smelled like spoiled milk for like most of his life. He also like hated bathing. Like it was a huge struggle to get him to like actually bathe.
Yikes. God, what happened to him when he was a baby?
Yeah, seriously. But another classmate said that Kaczynski was reserved but regarded him as a genius. It's just an opinion, but Ted was brilliant. Other students stated Kaczynski was less socially adverse than these descriptions imply. An Eliot House resident who dined with Kaczynski at times called him very quiet but personable. He would enter into the discussions, maybe a little less so than most, but he was certainly friendly. So it kind of makes you wonder if this is all accurate about him, you know what I mean? Because like I feel like people, after they find out about what Ted did, they sort of like blow this up in their minds and they're like, oh yeah, he was so weird and quiet and he never interacted with anybody ever. But like then other people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. We used to hang out with Ted. Like,
I mean, it could be that, but it could also be that, you know, people show different parts of their personality with different people, so it's possible that there were just certain people that he opened up to more than others.
Yeah, exactly. That was the next point that I was about to make, is just that, you know, he could have just not liked some of those people very much and he didn't want to hang out with them. Like, I'm going to be honest. If I don't like someone, I'm going to be really quiet around them. If I don't want to be around them, I'm just going to not really open up around them too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll answer questions if I'm asked, but I'll keep it to a minimum. I'm not going to go out of my way to start telling them my life story.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's some people who, like, if I talk to them for 5 minutes, I feel a connection, and then I'll word vomit my entire life to them.
Like you did to me.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You were a little quiet at first when we first met, but, you know.
You got over it. Yeah.
You got over it. Anyways, so Kaczynski earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in mathematics from Harvard in 1962 and finished with a 3.12 GPA, but he had been expected to perform better. Now, my belief is that, like, you know, maybe he just had a hard time in college because he was fucking 16 years old when he went there.
Wild concept. But maybe you're supposed to.
Could also have.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it could also have something to do with the studies. As a sophomore, Kaczynski participated in a study described by author Alston Chase as a purposely brutalizing psychological experiment led by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray. Subjects were told that they would be debating personal philosophy with a fellow student, and they were asked to write detailed essays about their personal beliefs and aspirations. These essays were then turned over to an anonymous attorney who, in a later session, would confront and belittle the subject, making vehement, sweeping, and personally abusive attacks until the contents of the essay, and using the contents of the essay as ammunition, while electrodes monitored the students' psychological reactions.
I actually knew about this.
Yeah. Now, these encounters were filmed, and subjects' expressions of anger and rage were later played back to them repeatedly. And those experiments lasted 3 years, with someone verbally abusing and humiliating Ted Kaczynski each week. And he spent 200 hours as a part of this study.
Yikes.
They basically were trying to break down.
Ooh, you glitched a little there. What'd you say?
I said they were basically trying to break these people down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it could have worked. It could explain why Ted did not as well as people expected him to with his GPA. 3.12. It's not quite what you would expect from a genius. Number 1, he could have been bored. Number 2, the studies. Number 3, he was fucking 16 when he went into college. Like, for God's sake,
like maybe when you skip grades and you go to college early, it's so you can actually be academically challenged. So maybe that's what happened. Wild concept.
Maybe he wasn't academically challenged enough at Harvard. But Kaczynski's lawyers later attributed his hostility towards mind control techniques to his participation in Murray's study, and some sources have suggested that Murray's experiments were part of Project MKUltra, the CIA's research into mind control. Now, we'll get into MKUltra in another episode because that in itself is its own episode. I don't really know that I would call that one like yeah, it's like kind of a crime against humanity, but like we'll figure out MKUltra another time. What?
It's complicated.
It really is. It really is. We'll get into MKUltra a different time. That one's like a mixture of like crime and conspiracy theory, honestly.
Yeah.
Now, many have suggested that this experience may have motivated Kaczynski's criminal activities, and Kaczynski himself said of the experiments, "I experienced a lasting resentment of Murray and his co-workers. This resentment was not primarily due to dyadic disputation that Chase makes so much of. What I mainly resented was that I had been talked into participating in studies that involved extensive invasion of my privacy and by people whom I disliked personally. I am quite confident that my experiences with Professor Murray had no significant..." Now, I personally don't think that the experiences with Professor Murray led him to like start bombing people and everything. I'm kind of on Ted's side about that, but you know, I definitely don't think that it helped.
Oh, definitely not. Like maybe like in the grand scheme of things, it didn't affect what happened, but like it definitely like affected him like at the time, like that, like there's no way. Yeah. There's no way that subjecting yourself to, well, not subjecting himself, but like being subjected to that for 200 hours over the course of 3 years, there's no way that's not going to take a toll on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. That definitely took a toll on him. I just don't think that it made him be like, I'm going to blow everything up. Like, no.
Yeah, not necessarily.
I think that it was a drop in the bucket.
That's valid.
Yeah. So in 1962, Kaczynski enrolled at the University of Michigan, where he earned his master's and doctoral degrees in mathematics. And in 1964 and 1967, respectively. So doctoral degree, master's in 1964 and doctoral in 1967. Michigan was not his first choice for post-grad education, and he had also applied to the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Chicago, both of which accepted him but offered him no teaching position or financial aid. And Michigan had offered him an annual grant of $2,310, which is about equivalent to $19,524, and a teaching post. At the University of Michigan, Kaczynski specialized in complex analysis, specifically geometric function theory. His intellect and drive impressed his professors, and Professor Peter Duren said of Ted, "He was an unusual person. It was not like the other graduate students. He was much more focused about his work, and he had a drive to discover mathematical truth." George Pranin, another of his Michigan mathematics professors, said, "It's not enough to say that he was smart." At Michigan, Kaczynski earned 5 B's and 12 A's in his 18 courses. However, in 2006, he said his memories of the University of Michigan are not pleasant. "The fact that I not only passed my courses, except one physics course, but got quite a few A's shows how wretchedly low the standards were at Michigan." Damn, dude.
That's kind of how I felt about my sophomore year of high school.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. it's like one of those things where it's like, anywhere that would have me as a student isn't anywhere I would want to go kind of situation.
Kind of. For me, it's more like, like I went from like failing basically my freshman year to being on the honor roll my sophomore year, and I was kind of like, well, I mean, maybe if I actually like felt challenged, this would be more impressive, but I'm not really impressed or proud of this. It just kind of happened. I don't feel like I tried.
Yeah, I wasn't really challenged in school enough, except in math, and then I ended up like dropping out high school. So, but like the reason I wasn't challenged in math is because like I was challenged, but nobody tried to fucking help me. Like no one ever tried to actually teach me. That was the thing that was the most upsetting to me. It's like I tried, I really did try, but like nobody actually tried back. That was the most upsetting part.
I understand that for sure.
I fell behind in like 4th grade, and like they just kept passing me along, just like someone else's problem. Yeah.
American education
Anyway.
system.
So, excuse me. So for a period of several weeks in 1966, Ted Kaczynski has claimed that he experienced intense sexual of being a female and decided to undergo gender transition. Now, he arranged to meet with a psychiatrist, but then changed his mind in the waiting room and did not disclose his reason for making the appointment. Afterwards, enraged, he considered killing the psychiatrist and other people whom he hated. And he described this episode as a major turning point in his life, saying, "I felt disgusted about what my uncontrolled sexual cravings had almost led to do. And I felt humiliated, and I violently hated the psychiatrist. Just then, there came a major turning point in my life. Like a phoenix, I burst from the ashes of my despair to a glorious new hope." Now, we are not saying we are not saying that Ted did the things that he did because he was possibly I don't want to say confused about his gender identity, but unsure about his gender identity. There's a lot of people conflicted. There's a lot of people who like to make, generalizations when it comes to like trans people, and when it comes to people who experience, confliction about their gender identity and that sort of thing. We'll say that J.K. Rowling is definitely one of them with her latest book.
I haven't even given it thought. I kind of forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. But we are not saying that Ted did these things because of his gender identity. Ted did these things because he was a very sick individual, which has nothing to do with his gender identity. And until he actually makes a statement or comes out and says, "I don't want to be referred to as he, him," we will still keep using he, him pronouns for Ted Kaczynski. That's just a point that I want to make really fast. Ted didn't do these things because of his gender identity. Ted did these things because he was a sick individual.
Yeah, he was.
You have to be sick for these things.
Yeah, he was not in his most right of minds.
But it doesn't really sound like he ever was.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is somebody who, like, from a very, very, very early and, like, significant point in their life was traumatized and, didn't get a lot of what they needed in, like, their formative years from an emotional and, like, social point. So, yeah, he's probably not ever been in his most right of minds.
No, it doesn't really seem like it. But
Mm-mm. But it
no.
also doesn't. It's also kind of complicated because like his parents seem to have done like everything that they could, but this also doesn't seem like anything that was like. It doesn't seem like at this point it's necessarily like his fault, or it just seems like there's a lot of like uncontrollable factors that have just kind of added up to reach this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a big thing about Ted Kaczynski is like there's a lot of things that went into this. It's not just like, the parents did it. Like a lot of these cases, this is something completely different. This is something that we've never really dealt with before.
Yeah, it's just like it seems like it's just a lot of like unfortunate circumstances that have just kind of all built up and eventually came to a head.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me.
So in 1967, Kaczynski's dissertation, Boundary Functions, won the Sumner B. Myers Prize for Michigan's Best Mathematics Dissertation of the Year. Alan Shields, his doctoral advisor, called it the best that I have ever directed, and Maxwell Reed, a member of his dissertation committee, said, I would guess that maybe 10 or 12 men in the country understood or appreciated it. Now, Kaczynski published 2 journal articles related to his dissertation and 3 more after leaving Michigan. And in late 1967, the 25-year-old Kaczynski became the youngest assistant professor of mathematics in the history of the University of California, Berkeley, up to that time, where he taught undergrad courses in geometry and calculus. Now, according to his teaching evaluations, he was not well liked by his students. He seemed uncomfortable teaching, taught straight from the textbook, and refused to answer questions, which, not gonna lie, I've had teachers like that. Now,
Oof.
let's see. I have a picture of Ted from around that time when he started teaching at Berkeley. So here is that. Not an unfortunate looking dude, weirdly enough, right?
Wow, he looks a
He just
lot more like Michael Shannon there, actually.
right, right, right. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. But yeah, no, he looks very normal. Like
Yeah,
he's got like a kind of timeless look to him.
he really does. He really
Like you
does.
like you could take that guy and you could put him out like now and he would blend in.
He'd be a TikTok star. You see that guy on TikTok?
Probably not.
Well, not Ted, no, but like that guy, and like if it was just that face, like you could totally see him on TikTok.
Oh, I thought you said, "Did you see that guy on TikTok?"
No,
Like
no, no.
I thought you were comparing him to somebody.
No. I said, couldn't you see that guy on TikTok?
Okay, sorry, I misheard you.
I also have some pictures of him when he was like really young. Do you want to see those?
Sure.
Okay. So let's show this one's a good one. This is him and his brother David. And a bird.
And a bird.
So Ted's the older brother.
And David's the bird.
Yeah. I don't know who that other kid is. Certainly not David.
How inspiring. The Kaczynskis adopted a bird and accepted him as their child.
Just like
It's like
Stuart Little. I'm still mad about that movie.
Uh,
And this is a picture of Ted when he was getting ready to go to Harvard.
his jacket's so long.
Well, that was the style back then.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Eh.
Down past the hips. Like his hips would be like right about here. Maybe like waist, hip, and then jacket all the way down here.
Look at that high-waisted man. He got feminine hips. No, that's something I'm sensitive about.
Yeah. So, old Ted. Let me just really quick find. Sorry, I was just pulling up the next picture that I'm going to show in a little bit. So anyways, without any explanation, after a couple of years of teaching, Ted Kaczynski resigned on June 30th, 1969. And at the time, the chairman of the mathematics department, J.W. Addison, called this a sudden and unexpected resignation. In 1996, vice chairman of Berkeley, Calvin C. Moore, said that given Kaczynski's impressive dissertation and publications, he could have advanced up the ranks and been a senior member of the faculty today. After resigning from Berkeley, Kaczynski moved to his parents' home in Lombard, Illinois, and then 2 years later, in 1971, to a remote cabin that he had built outside of Lincoln, Montana, where he could live a simple life with little money and without electricity or running water, working odd jobs and receiving some financial support from his family. Now, whenever people talk about Kaczynski's cabin, they always make it seem like it's in the middle of the woods and there was nobody around or anything like that. Kaczynski lived right off of a main road, okay? Like, I'm not even joking. Like, right off of a fucking main road. Like, there was a mailbox. If there's a mailbox, that is not the middle of nowhere.
Is that how that works? Is that the standard?
Yes. If he actually lived in the middle of nowhere, and this is the cabin that he lived in, for the record. That's the cabin right there.
It sure is there, isn't it?
It is. It is indeed.
It's like, it's not run down. It's not like a shack. It's just kind of there.
I mean, he built it, so that cabin was actually it was at like a museum for a while. I don't know where it is now because that museum shut down. So like I have no idea where that cabin is now. That would be something to like own. That would be so weird. Could you imagine like owning the fucking cabin that the Unabomber lived in?
That would be something.
I guess I'm one of those weirdos that's just sort of like, I would own that.
Yeah, that was honestly like my first thought, just like, that seems like something you would do.
Yeah. I'm not, you know what? I'm not even going to be like embarrassed about it. I would own the shit out of that cabin. Are you fucking kidding me?
Not even to live in it, like just to have it.
No, I wouldn't live in it. I would never do that. It probably smells like spoiled milk even to this day.
Probably. That's a hard smell to get rid of.
Mm-hmm. I'd need an awful lot of Bath and Body Works plugins to get rid of that smell.
Hey, I could hook you up.
Good, because I actually need some more.
I'll get you some.
You know what I like. Anyways, so his goal was to become self-sufficient so that he could live autonomously, and he taught himself survival skills such as tracking game, edible plant identification, organic farming, bow drilling, and other primitive technologies. You think he was just like living out there like a caveman, and his neighbors would like come outside with their coffee and just see him like huddled around a fire, like in like a skin that he like cut off of a deer that he found dead, and they're just like, "Morning, Ted," and he's just like, I
don't feel like they meant that primitive.
I know, but I'm just imagining him just doing that shit, you know?
Just like clubs his animals to death. Just finds like a really big stick and just bludgeons them. Doesn't use a knife.
No. His neighbors walk out. His neighbor's wife is just like, "Oh, Ted's in the garden again. Go shoo him out of here." The husband just with a broom. Go on, Ted. Get out of here.
Just.
Ted, don't make me swat you. You know I will.
Makes like vaguely threatening gestures.
Ted does, or the neighbor?
Ted does.
The neighbor just like, oh, I'm taller than you.
Ted, fuck!
His neighbor goes back to his house and is like, all right, he's gone.
Just did he threaten you again?
Yeah, he thought so. All I said was, I just lifted my arms up and said, I'm taller than you, and then he scampered home.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like Ted.
Yep. Montana. So he used to ride an old bicycle to get to town. He used to volunteer at the local library, and he said that he visited, and the local library said that he visited frequently to read classic works in their original languages, to which I just imagine Ted sitting there going, 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. Holy shit, this is a classic! I just like spit so much when I said that. Oh my god, that was embarrassing.
I mean, for what it's worth, I didn't notice.
Thank you, I'm glad. So anyways, so other Lincoln residents said later that this lifestyle that Ted had chosen is really not that unusual for the area.
Dum da-dum, dum da-dum, dum da-dum, dum da-dum.
It's not unusual to be a weird loner in the woods.
It's not unusual to be self-sufficient.
Decided that it was impossible to live peacefully in nature because of the destruction of the wildland around his cabin by real estate development and industrial projects. And in response, he began performing acts of sabotage against nearby developments, and in 1975, dedicated himself to reading about sociology and political philosophy, such as the works of Jacques Ellul.
That's a tricky name.
So, I managed that one, but I couldn't get anything in oh god, what was his name? I couldn't get any of the Ukrainian names right.
Those ones were funky.
Dude, I could get Jacques Ellul, but I couldn't do any of the Ukrainian names. Like that, it was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Oh my god.
Yeah, those ones were tricky. Like honestly, like I don't know why I could say them. That was really weird. Yeah. That was a weird time.
Yeah, that was a weird time, but it was a good episode. We had fun with that one.
That one was fun.
Goat boy. Good old goat boy. So Jacques Ellul was a French philosopher, sociologist, lay theologian, and professor who was a noted Christian anarchist. So, of course, good old Kaczynski's just like, Kaczynski's just like those little kids in Talladega Nights, just screaming, anarchy, anarchy.
I don't know what that means, but I love it.
That's basically Kaczynski fault. Kaczynski's the one going, I don't know what that means, but I love it. Like following after Jacques Ellul.
And he's just going, anarchy, anarchy.
I don't know what that means. Yeah, basically what happens. So in an interview after his arrest, he recalled being shocked on a hike to one of his favorite wild spots. And we have a lot of quotes from Kaczynski because he is still alive and he's very open about the things that he's done. He's a talker. He is a talker. So Kaczynski said it's kind of rolling country, not flat, and when you get to the edge of it, you find these ravines that cut very steeply into cliff-like drop-offs, and there was even a waterfall there. It was about a 2 days hike from my cabin. That was the best spot until the summer of 1983. That summer, there were too many people around my cabin, so I decided I needed some peace. I went back to the plateau, and when I got there, I found that they had put a road right through the middle of it. You just can't imagine how upset I was. It was from that point on I decided that rather than trying to acquire further wilderness skills, I would work on getting back at the system. Revenge. So dramatic.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. But Kaczynski's first mail bomb was directed at Buckley Christ, a professor of materials engineering at Northwestern University. On May 25th, 1978, a package bearing Christ's return address was found in a parking lot at the University of Illinois at Chicago. The package was returned to Christ, who was suspicious because he had not sent the package, so he contacted the campus police. Officer Terry Marker opened the package, which exploded and injured his left hand. And thus was the first bombing of the Unabomber. Now, at that point, Kaczynski returned to Illinois for the bombing and stayed there for a while to work with his father and brother at a foam rubber factory. It was there that Ted seemed to find interest in a woman for the first time in his life. Now, the woman has remained nameless as far as my investigation has gone. I have not been able to find a name for her. So we're just going to call her the woman because we don't really want to give a name to this lady. And, you know, if she wants to remain nameless, that is her prerogative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't want to expose somebody who up till now has been anonymous for like good
Yeah.
reason. Like I don't blame I
Reason.
I definitely don't blame her for like wanting to kind of stay out of things.
Yeah, I don't blame her either. Just like, you want to stay out of it, girl? We got you. We got you. So we're just going to call her the woman. So it was there. Sorry. So he and the woman had a few dates in 1978, and that woman also gave the future domestic terrorist his first kiss at age 36. She also, FBI agent Kathy Puckett also told Legal Analysis Liz Weil in the author's upcoming book, Hunting the Unabomber. He writes about how she kissed him, and he describes it like a Martian meeting an Earthling. He said she was doing something with her tongue that he couldn't quite understand. He'd never kissed another woman in his life, because if he had, he would have written it down. Because Ted wrote down everything that he ever did. That is not conjecture. There are books upon books of Ted's writing down every single thing that he did all day, every day, but he wrote it all in code. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Very much like the Zodiac.
Oh yeah. I only know a little about the Zodiac, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. His journals are something to fucking behold. Like, honestly, I hate them. But I'm just gonna show a quick picture of his fucking journal because it annoys me. We'll talk more about his journals in the next episode. But yeah, that that is a of one of his journals.
That's a lot.
Hmm.
Okay. Uh-oh.
All right, sorry about that. We seem to have glitched out for a moment there. Can you hear me now, Kate?
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if that was on your end or my end.
I think it might have been my end, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Needless to say, I'm going to try and make sure that that doesn't happen again on Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. I can't remember
Okay.
if this Thursday was Thanksgiving or not. Obviously, Kate and I are not going to be having an episode on this on Thanksgiving Day. We
That's
will
accurate.
leave time for everyone to be with their families.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, like I was saying, for those of you who are watching the episode, not or who are listening to the episode, not watching, the journal is literally just a page full of numbers. So yeah,
It's like numbers in blocks with like lines. So like it looks like it looks like there's something going on, but like I would have to look at that for like a year to even try to figure that out.
yeah. So anyways, so the woman soon enough rejected Ted as a possible partner. His brother reflected, Ted was extremely upset. He wrote these limericks, these very unflattering, ugly sort of limericks about her, and he posted them around the work site. Now, remember, Ted was basically working for his brother at the foam rubber factory. What is it with serial killers working in factories? Like, honestly.
I mean, a lot of people work in factories. It's like steady, monotonous, like
Like, Ted worked at a foam rubber factory. Jeffrey Dahmer worked at a chocolate factory.
it was his job to turn on the waterfall every day.
Yeah. He was an Oompa Loompa. He had to walk on his knees. That's why he started murdering. He was like, God damn it, I'm so fucking sick of walking on my knees.
My knees hurt so bad. This is terrible for my joints.
Have you and I done Dahmer, Kate?
I think so.
You think so? All right.
I'm
Well, we'll
pretty.
do Dahmer for the podcast. But anyways, so David Kaczynski said that he threatened to fire Ted if he didn't stop harassing the woman, and Ted responded by showing up to work the next day and posting another one of the limericks, and as a result, David did indeed fire his brother. Which,
Well, good for you,
honestly,
David.
yeah, you know what? I gotta say, good for you, David. Like, you did what you said you would. You fired him.
Wasn't
But
I just out here making idle
that
threats?
pretty much left. Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and it just shows that you're not going to show special treatment to your brother just because he is your brother. Like, you're like, hey, if you keep this shit up, I'm going to fire you. Like, I'm going to have to. And your brother's just like, no, you won't. It's fine.
Yeah, like frankly, like even with my siblings, like you know how close me and my siblings are. Like if I was like their boss for any reason, I would hold them to a higher standard, if anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. But, David tried to talk to his brother and be like, hey, maybe don't do that. And Ted was just like, what are you going to do? Fire me? And then did it again. And David was like, hey, guess what? You're fired, Ted.
I warned ya. Bye.
Ted, meanwhile, is just like, I'm revenge. It gives me more time to work on my revenge, David.
Ted, just no, David.
You, David. But that is where we are going to leave off for part 1 of Ted Kaczynski, aka the Unabomber, with Ted finally having more time to work on his revenge.
Dun dun dun.
Cliffhanger. Oh man. So what do you think of this guy so far? You know a little bit about the Unabomber actually, which is a slight change of pace from normal. Normally
Yeah,
you don't really know much about these guys.
yeah, and it's kind of funny how like I ended up learning anything about him. Like my dad loves all this true crime stuff too, and he just happened to be watching a bunch of stuff about the Unabomber over the course of a couple days, and I just kind of got sucked into it. So it was just like a lot of documentaries and like interviews with people who were like involved in the investigation and stuff. So like I know a little bit more about stuff that happened towards the end.
Right.
So it's like I can't remember it all right now, but I've got a feeling like as we get more into it, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, because like I'll remember it, but I don't remember it right now.
What did you think about learning about his early life?
That was interesting. I kind of had a feeling that he was one of those people who was like in like the genius classification or like had a higher IQ just based on what I knew about like towards the end of things. So I'm not that surprised that he had kind of a hard time socially, but like I still don't think I'm over learning about like the hive situation as a baby. Like I'm still kind of processing that.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And there's like a lot of studies out there about like how important it is for babies to like connect with people when they're, really little and stuff. So like it's actually totally fascinating to me. And like maybe I'll post it on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Chardonnay, CHARDONHAAAYTC. So maybe I'll post it on there. Maybe I will post it, but like these studies are really easy to find on YouTube. So like you can just check it out on YouTube, honestly. But like these studies are just absolutely fascinating. But anyways, if you like tonight's episode, feel free to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/CHARDONHAAAYTC. Or you can throw Kate and myself a couple bucks. You could throw me a few bucks on Venmo, buy me a bottle of wine. I drink cheap ass wine, which means it's only $5. So it's my Venmo is at Dakota's Beard. Kate's Venmo is at Kate Ulrich 42.
You may have heard me say at the beginning of this that I'm on my last bottle of wine, so I need some more wine.
Me too. I gotta buy a bottle before Thursday because I'm finishing it up right now. Let's finish off our glasses together. Kate, you got any more in there?
Yep.
Cheers.
Whew.
Shooting wine is not the best idea.
No, that really wasn't. I felt that in my sinuses.
Yeah, me too. I feel it in my sinuses too. That was a bad idea. And I've got to pack up my car for my trip to Vegas tomorrow. So here's an announcement, everyone. I am going to be moving in the beginning of the year. While Kate and I are at the end/beginning of this year, I'm going to be moving to my new spot in Vegas. This is going to be a really good thing. I'm really excited about this. I'm going out tomorrow to start prepping the area and prepping my space. I'm moving in with my biological dad for the first time in my life. I will be living exclusively with my biological dad, which is going to be interesting. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to be able to spend some more time with my siblings that are out in the Las Vegas area. I am going to be moving the first of my stuff out tomorrow. I'm going to be, just getting my whole area prepped. I'm going to be building like a nice recording spot in my room there. I'm actually really excited about this. Like I have a lot of plans for what I want to do with this space that I have out there. And I need money to buy like a real desk. So please throw me a couple bucks on Venmo, because that actually goes towards me buying a new desk and getting some new space. So anyways, until Thursday, where you will see me in my new space. Say goodnight, Kate.
Good night, Kate.
Good night. And don't
Hold your babies.
Yeah, hold your babies. Hold your babies, because that is important. God, fucking babies.